Good evening, and welcome to Late Night Science. Wherever you are, perhaps lying beneath a quiet ceiling, a single lamp still glowing, or looking up at the night sky through a half-open window, let this be a soft moment between thought and dream. The world outside grows still, and in that stillness we begin our journey. Have you ever stared at the night sky and wondered, how did everything truly begin? From the stars to our very existence. In this video, we're uncovering 10 mind-bending theories that will challenge your reality and keep you hooked till the end. But tonight, we start with the strangest question of all, the one that hums beneath every other. What was there before anything began? Before we drift deeper, take a breath. Feel the quiet air around you. Maybe share softly where you're listening from, somewhere on this tiny blue world, floating in an endless sea of dark. And if you wish to walk with us through more nights like this, you can quietly subscribe, not as a click, but as a gesture of curiosity. A small light added to this constellation of wonder seekers. Now, let us begin, slowly, gently, at the edge of everything. Before the first second ticked, before the first particle hummed, before even the concept of before existed, there was a silence. Not the silence of an empty room, nor the hush of sleep, but a deeper kind, one that cannot be measured or remembered. Scientists call it the pre-Big Bang era. But even that word, era, is misleading because time had not yet begun. There were no clocks, no seconds, no unfolding. The very notion of when had no meaning. It was not darkness, for darkness requires light to contrast it. It was not nothing, because even nothing is a definition. It was potential. Waiting. You might imagine it like a still ocean with no shore, no waves, no surface tension. Just possibility. A canvas that has never felt a brush. A story that has not yet thought of words. Some physicists describe it as a quantum vacuum, a place where the laws of physics we know today dissolve into abstraction. Others imagine it as a singularity, a point of infinite density, smaller than an atom, where space and time were curled up together like an idea not yet spoken aloud. But even those metaphors fail, because when we speak of a point, we already assume space exists. When we speak of before, we assume time does. So, what language can we use to describe something that has no stage, no sequence, no context? It is like trying to describe the silence before the first sound was invented. Perhaps then, this is not a problem of science alone, but of imagination. The human mind evolved within time. We count, we age, we wait. To imagine timelessness is to step outside of our own design. Yet here we are, peering beyond the curtain of the universe, asking what it was made of, when the question itself may not even make sense. You drift through the thought, as if floating in that pre-time ocean. There is no direction, no up or down, only a soft awareness unanchored. Maybe this is what the universe felt, if felt is even the right word, when it was only potential, an infinite pause before the first breath. Some scientists suggest that even in this nothing there was something, a fluctuating field of energy, bubbling with uncertainty. Quantum physics tells us that emptiness is never truly empty. Particles and antiparticles flicker in and out of existence, borrowing energy from the void and returning it almost instantly. Could one of those tiny, random fluctuations have expanded into everything? Could the universe itself be a brief moment of quantum rebellion, a spark that refused to vanish back into stillness? Others find poetry in the paradox. They suggest that the universe didn't begin in time, but with time. Time was born in that first flash. The Big Bang not as an explosion in space, but as the creation of space and time itself. In that view, asking what came before is like asking what's north of the North Pole. The question dissolves in its own logic, and yet the human heart still wants to ask. Because somewhere in that impossible silence we sense meaning. Not the cold equations of physics, but a subtler mystery. Why should anything exist at all? Why not eternal stillness forever? If non-existence is the easier state, then what or who nudged the void into being? You feel that question settle in you as gentle as snowfall. Maybe it's not a puzzle to solve, but a presence to feel. Every moment that passes, the ticking of your watch, the fading of stars, your own heartbeat, is an echo of that original awakening. Time began once, and it is still beginning. Imagine the very first moment when the universe unfurled itself. There was no witness, no light, only expansion, pure motion without a mover. And yet, from that movement came everything. Atoms, stars, galaxies, consciousness. Out of the silence came the possibility of thought. Out of the absence, the capacity for wonder. Philosophers have long whispered that perhaps this is the true secret of the beginning, that creation and awareness are intertwined. That when existence first stirred, something like curiosity was already there, embedded in the fabric of being. Because what is curiosity, if not the desire of the universe to know itself? As you listen, you might feel a strange sense of calm, a realization that this question may have no final answer, and that's what makes it beautiful. The mystery is not a wall that blocks us, but a horizon that calls us forward. The silence before time was not a void to be feared, but a space to be filled with meaning, with stories, with us. Perhaps, then, the universe didn't emerge from nothing, but from potential that was always there, waiting for a reason to unfold. And maybe that reason was simply this, to become aware, to experience its own depth through stars, through life, through you. In the gentle rhythm of thought, we begin to sense that time's first breath was not the start of a story, but the continuation of something eternal, something that doesn't need a beginning because it is, and always has been, the ground of being itself. So what was before? Maybe only silence, but not an empty silence, a pregnant one holding the blueprint of everything yet to come, a silence that hummed with invisible frequencies preparing to become sound, light, and motion. Perhaps that silence is still here, beneath the noise of galaxies, beneath the hum of electricity, beneath your own breathing. Waiting as you drift at the edge of this thought, the night outside feels larger, softer. Every flicker of a distant star is a memory of that first awakening, the moment when silence decided to speak, and somewhere between that nothingness and now, between stillness and motion, between being and becoming, the story of everything began, and perhaps is still beginning. So close your eyes and let this question linger gently. If time itself had to be born, what was the midwife of existence? The silence that preceded time trembles, and then something moves. You can almost feel it, a vibration in the dark, a ripple through the nothing that once was. In that instant, everything that would ever exist is compressed into a single, unthinkably small point. No space, no stars, no distance between things. Just density so pure it cannot be imagined, a seed containing all potential, every atom that would one day make every world. And then, without warning, it happens, the moment everything begins. Scientists call it the Big Bang, but the name can mislead you. It wasn't an explosion in space, it was space itself expanding. Not a sound, but a stretching, a sudden unfolding of the fabric that would one day cradle galaxies and minds alike. You picture it like a breath, slow and immense, the universe exhaling itself into being. From a single flash of creation, time begins to flow, light begins to travel, and the first hum of existence fills the void. You drift closer in thought, watching the birth of everything from a place beyond sight. The first trillionth of a second is chaos and wonder, energy too intense to hold still. Quarks flicker into existence, then vanish, like sparks in a storm. Space balloons outward faster than light can keep up, carrying with it all that will ever be. Matter and antimatter dance together and annihilate in flashes of pure energy, while a few stray particles escape destruction. The survivors who will one day form galaxies, stars, planets, oceans, and you. It is difficult to imagine a beginning without a boundary. In ordinary life, everything has an edge, a start, a place where it begins. But this, the Big Bang, is not a single point inside a greater space. It is the space. Every direction expands at once. Every point moves away from every other. If you were somehow there, you wouldn't see the universe expanding outward from a distant center. You'd see space stretching everywhere around you, evenly, endlessly, quietly, furious in its birth. The early universe is light and fire, temperatures trillions of degrees hot. Yet that even this inferno is strangely peaceful in concept. Everything that will ever exist moves in harmony, governed by laws that are being written as they unfold. The first forces separate like voices joining a choir: gravity, strong force, weak force, electromagnetism, all emerging from unity, like instruments tuning for a cosmic symphony. A few 100,000 years pass, a blink compared to eternity, and something miraculous happens. The universe cools just enough for atoms to form. Hydrogen, helium, and a trace of lithium. The fog of energy begins to clear, and light, once trapped, can finally travel freely. That light still travels today, moving outward in all directions, a whisper from the universe's first heartbeat. Scientists have found this echo. It's called the cosmic microwave background radiation. It's not visible to your eyes, but it fills all of space, a faint glow left from that first great expansion. When you tune an old radio between stations and hear static, a small fraction of that noise, tiny bursts of electromagnetic energy, comes from this ancient light. You are literally hearing the afterglow of creation, the birth cry of the cosmos, softened by time. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine that hum. Not as a loud sound, but as an invisible warmth, a presence that connects everything. Each particle in your body once shared that same early light. The iron in your blood, the carbon in your cells, the calcium in your bones, they were born from processes that began in that first expansion. The Big Bang was not just the start of the universe, it was the beginning of every story that would follow, including yours, yet despite its name, the Big Bang wasn't the loud, fiery chaos of our imagination. There was no center, no explosion. It was smooth, gentle, almost perfect. The background radiation that scientists measure today is astonishingly uniform, almost the same temperature everywhere in the sky, differing only by 1 part in 100,000. And those tiny fluctuations, those minute imperfections, are what allowed galaxies to form. A whisper of unevenness in an otherwise perfect sea of energy became the seeds of stars, planets, and life. Out of near perfection, imperfection made beauty possible. You might wonder, what caused it? What lit the spark? Science can describe what happened after the beginning, but not the moment of it. Was it quantum fluctuation? A ripple in higher dimensions? Or something beyond physics? A principle of being, a pulse of awareness? The equations reach their limits, and we are left with mystery. Perhaps the beginning didn't have a reason at all. Perhaps it was inevitable, the way a note must sound when the instrument is tuned just right. The universe, even in its infancy, seemed to know how to become itself. Laws emerged and held firm, guiding the flow of matter and energy, weaving the first cosmic web. And as space expanded, it cooled, giving birth to structure, pattern, and order. What began as uniform fire became the architecture of reality. You can imagine it like an artist laying down the first brushstrokes on an infinite canvas, delicate lines of gravity, faint contrasts of heat and cold, swirling patterns that would one day become galaxies. Billions of years later, those galaxies still expand away from one another, carried by the same momentum that began in that first instant. The echo continues. Every second, the universe grows larger, colder, and quieter. Yet that first breath still resonates through it all, like the lingering note of a song that never ends. You sit within that song now, every heartbeat a quiet reflection of the universe's rhythm. When you look at the night sky, the starlight that reaches you is a message from the past, a light that began its journey long before you existed, before your world was born, before even your sun had formed. Each photon carries history, traveling across cosmic time to remind you that beginnings are never truly gone. They ripple forward, shaping everything that follows. It's humbling, isn't it? To realize that the same event that birthed galaxies also set in motion the chain of cause and effect that would one day produce thought, awareness looking back at its own origin. The Big Bang was not just the universe becoming matter, it was matter beginning to wonder about itself. As you drift deeper into this thought, you sense that the beginning never truly ended. The universe is still expanding, still unfolding. Creation didn't stop, it only slowed to a pace we can live within. Every breath you take is part of that ongoing expansion, each exhale echoing the universe's first. And so, the moment everything began is not behind us, it is still happening, quietly, endlessly, in the stretch of space between stars, in the pulse of energy inside atoms, in the simple act of existing. The Big Bang is not a memory. It is the present moment continuing to bloom. Listen closely, and you might still hear it, the faint hum of creation, the afterglow of the universe's first breath. The light that never truly went out, and as that light fades softly into thought, one question lingers in the mind. If the universe began with a single breath, what was the first thing it dreamed of becoming? Imagine the quiet after a deep breath, not silence exactly, but the pause between two notes of a song. That's where this story begins. Not in chaos, not in light, but in the shimmering uncertainty between something and nothing. We call it the quantum realm, but that name barely captures its strangeness. Here, the rules of everyday logic dissolve. Particles appear where there were none, vanish again before they can be seen, and the emptiness itself begins to behave as if it were alive. In this world, nothingness is never truly empty. Even in what we think of as a perfect vacuum, there is a restless energy, but an invisible foam of creation and erasure. Physicists call them quantum fluctuations, temporary particles that blink into existence, borrow energy from the void, and return it a fraction of a second later, as if apologizing for having disturbed the stillness. These fleeting events happen everywhere, all the time, and their effects can be measured. The Casimir effect, for example, shows that two metal plates placed very close together feel a tiny pull, not from air or magnetism, but from the pressure of the quantum vacuum itself, a sign that emptiness is busier than we ever imagined. You might picture it as a sea of invisible bubbles constantly forming and collapsing, an eternal simmer beneath reality. Each bubble is small beyond comprehension, smaller than the smallest particle, yet within its flicker lies the potential for universes. Our universe, some physicists propose, could have been one such bubble, one fluctuation that grew instead of fading away. A tremor in the void that refused to vanish. It's an unsettling thought that everything, galaxies, stars, life, even the idea of nothing, might have come from a random fluctuation. No divine spark, no deliberate design, just the mathematics of uncertainty giving birth to existence. But perhaps that's the beauty of it. The quantum world teaches us that even uncertainty has structure, even randomness follows patterns. What we call chaos may simply be a kind of order we cannot yet see. You drift into this idea slowly, as if walking through fog. The mind resists it at first. How can nothing do anything at all? Yet the more we learn, the more it seems that the void is pregnant with possibility. In quantum field theory, every point in space is filled with fields, invisible fabrics that vibrate even when seemingly at rest. When energy spikes for an instant, a particle appears like a ripple traveling across an unseen sea. When that energy fades, the particle disappears, but the field remains quietly humming. From this perspective, the vacuum of space is not the absence of being, but a stage of constant improvisation. It is not a blank page, it's a manuscript being rewritten faster than we can read it. And somewhere within that endless rewriting, one fluctuation may have gone too far, stretching space itself, allowing its energy to feed back and expand instead of collapsing. That feedback, amplified by the laws of physics, could have inflated into what we now call the universe. In this way, creation might not be a single, miraculous event, but an inevitable consequence of the way energy behaves. If nothing contains energy, and energy can fluctuate, then creation is not an exception. It's what nothing does when given enough time. And perhaps time itself emerged as one of these fluctuations, a rhythm rising from timelessness. There's a strange comfort in that thought. It means existence doesn't need permission. The universe doesn't wait for a reason to begin. It simply can, and therefore it does. Every law of physics, every constant, every particle we know could be a frozen echo of that first quantum breath. Of course, not everyone agrees. Some scientists argue that the vacuum we can describe isn't truly nothing, but already a kind of something, a fabric with structure governed by laws. In that case, the real question is deeper. Where did those laws come from? Who or what gave the void its restless energy? Even the simplest fluctuation requires a stage on which to occur. And so the mystery remains. What set the stage for the first flicker of existence? You can feel that question stretching the mind to its edge. It's the same paradox whispered in philosophy for centuries. If something can come from nothing, then perhaps nothing was never real to begin with. Maybe what we call nothing is simply the lowest form of being, a silent mode of the same music that gives rise to everything else. Imagine for a moment that the universe breathes. Each fluctuation is an inhale and exhale, creation and return. The vacuum isn't a void, but a rhythm, invisible, eternal. The universe, then, could be one long inhalation that has not yet ended. We are living inside that breath, suspended between the stillness before and the silence after. And yet, even with equations and observations, we are left with mystery. Quantum physics can predict the behavior of particles, but not the why behind their dance. It tells us the rules of the game, but not who or what built the board. Perhaps there is no who. Perhaps the rules themselves are self-born, the way a melody seems to appear out of pure vibration. You close your eyes and imagine that first tremor in the void. It wouldn't have looked like an explosion or even light, only the sudden unfolding of possibility. Space swelling outward from nothing like a ripple widening across an unseen pond. That ripple still expands, carrying galaxies and thoughts with it. The echo of that fluctuation is what we call reality. If this is true, then existence itself is a quantum event, fleeting and miraculous. It may one day fade back into stillness, the same way it appeared. But perhaps that is not an end, only a return to the ocean that dreamed us. In that ocean, new ripples will form, new beginnings will bloom. Nothingness will stir again. And as you sit here now, surrounded by quiet air and soft starlight, you are part of that endless pulse, a temporary fluctuation in the universe, conscious for a while, aware of being aware. The same uncertainty that gave birth to everything also gives you the power to wonder about it. In the smallest trembling of the void, consciousness found its mirror. So perhaps nothing was never the absence of being, but the womb of it, the dark soil from which the cosmos grew. And perhaps even now the void is still alive, still trembling, still giving rise to new worlds beyond our reach. Listen closely. Beneath the hum of the night, beneath the rhythm of your breath, something subtle stirs. It is the quiet pulse of
quantum creation, so the sound of nothing becoming something. And as that sound fades into thought, a question drifts through the stillness. If the universe began as a fluctuation of nothing, then what does that make you? The nothing that learned how to dream.
Imagine standing before a library so vast that its walls dissolve into mist. The shelves stretch beyond sight, filled with books whose pages you can never finish. Each one hums faintly, as if alive, each telling a story of a universe. One book might describe ours, galaxies blooming from dust, life rising on a pale blue world. But beside it, there are others. Stories where time runs backward, where gravity repels instead of pulls, where light never existed, or where beings made of sound instead of matter fill the void with music. This is the vision the multiverse offers, not one creation, but countless. Not a single Big Bang, but infinite beginnings, each rewriting the laws of reality. The idea is almost unbearable in its scope. For centuries we thought the word universe meant everything. To speak of other universes was once nonsense, like talking about places outside of everywhere. Yet as physics pressed deeper into the strange, the concept began to whisper from between equations. Inflation theory, string theory, quantum mechanics, all in their own ways, hinted that our cosmos might be only one among many. To understand how, you must first imagine the first moments after our own universe began. Inflation, that mysterious near-instant expansion, could have been more than a singular event. If space itself has the power to inflate, then perhaps it does so not once, but endlessly in scattered regions. One bubble bursts into being, becoming our cosmos, while others blossom elsewhere in a cosmic froth. Each bubble is sealed from the next, its own laws crystallizing within. Together they form what cosmologists call the multiverse. Our bubble is simply one note in an infinite chord. But the multiverse is not a single idea, it's a constellation of possibilities. Some versions arise from cosmology, endless inflating bubbles. Others from quantum mechanics, every decision, every particle interaction splitting reality into countless parallel outcomes. In one you turned left instead of right. In another you never existed at all. Every moment, every choice spawns a branching of worlds, each as real as the one you know, but forever beyond your reach. It's unsettling and strangely poetic. If true, then somewhere, right now, another you is listening to this same thought, wondering the same thing. Perhaps in that world, you've made peace with questions this one can't answer. Perhaps you never found them at all. You drift through this idea carefully as though walking through a hall of mirrors. Each reflection feels familiar, yet not quite the same. Science, after all, does not imagine these worlds for comfort or story. It follows the logic of its own discoveries. Quantum theory tells us that reality is not singular, but probabilistic. Every event holds many potential outcomes, and until observed, they coexist in a strange superposition. Some physicists propose that these outcomes do happen, each in a separate universe. Observation then doesn't collapse reality into one path. It simply reveals which branch we occupy. Others look to the mathematics of string theory, where the universe may have more than 3 dimensions of space, perhaps 9 or 10, curled and hidden from view. In that geometry, entire other universes could be woven into the same cosmic fabric, invisible yet adjacent. A multiverse not of distance but of hidden layers, like music, playing in different keys at once, and then there's the anthropic whisper, the quiet realization that our universe's physical constants seem impossibly precise for life. If gravity, electromagnetism, or the speed of light were slightly different, stars might never form, atoms might never hold. Some see this as evidence of design. But the multiverse offers another explanation. If infinite universes exist, each with different constants, then life will naturally appear in the few where conditions happen to fit. We live in this universe not because it was made for us, but because in countless others we could not have lived to ask the question. You pause with that thought. It feels both humbling and lonely to imagine infinite worlds, yet realize you can never touch them. Our entire observable cosmos, or 93 billion light-years of it, could be a single bubble adrift in an ocean with no shore. Beyond its horizon, others might be blooming and fading, their light forever out of reach. But perhaps that's the point. The multiverse doesn't promise that we will see those other worlds. It simply expands what reality can mean. It tells us that creation may not be a singular miracle, but an ongoing process, a cosmic field forever experimenting, writing new rules, spinning endless variations of existence. And what, then, does it mean for you? If infinite versions of yourself exist, each making different choices, is the you here any less real? Or does your awareness, this single thread of experience, define its own universe entirely? Maybe consciousness itself is what turns probability into story, what turns possibility into memory. You may never cross into another world, but in imagination, you already have. You close your eyes and see it, bubbles upon bubbles, each glowing softly in the dark. Some expanding, some collapsing, each carrying its own time, its own physics, its own silence. A fractal of creation without a center, without an edge. You are floating among them, a witness to infinite beginnings. The hum of your own universe joins the chorus, and for a moment, you can almost hear the harmony, a cosmic symphony without repetition, every note both familiar and utterly new. Perhaps in some unreachable world, there's a version of you who has already solved the riddle of existence. Perhaps in another the question itself was never asked. But here, in this narrow slice of the infinite, you are exactly what the universe needed to wonder about itself. You are the question taking form. And maybe that is the true gift of the multiverse. Not proof, but perspective. It reminds us that even if infinity exists, our smallness is not meaningless. Each world, each story, each self is a thread in the vast weave of being. Remove one and the pattern would change. As the vision fades, you find yourself back in silence, the kind that comes after awe. The stars outside seem to flicker differently now, as if they too are windows to other realities, shining faintly from the shelves of that cosmic library. Somewhere, other readers are looking up at their own skies, wondering if they are alone. You both are, and are not. You both exist and forever will, scattered across the pages of infinity, bound by curiosity. And as the universe hums softly around you, a final question echoes through the dark. If infinite beginnings exist, then perhaps every story, including yours, has already been written, somewhere among the stars.
Imagine for a moment that the universe is alive, not in the way a creature is, but in the rhythm of something that breathes.
A great inhale, a long pause, then an exhale so vast it spans billions of years. If you listen closely enough, not with your ears, but with imagination, you might sense it. The cosmic rhythm beneath everything, the slow pulse of expansion and collapse. The Big Bang, then, was not a single birth, but one heartbeat in an eternal cycle. In the beginning, or at least our beginning, the universe surged outward with unimaginable force. Space stretched, galaxies bloomed, stars ignited, and the cosmic fabric expanded into what we now call everything. For decades, cosmologists believed this expansion would go on forever, thinning the stars until even light itself faded into cold silence. But another idea whispered from the equations. What if this outward rush is not endless, but temporary? What if gravity, the quiet sculptor of the cosmos, one day gathers enough strength to pull it all back again? The cyclic model of the universe, sometimes called the Big Bounce, suggests that the story of creation doesn't begin or end. It loops. Each universe is born, grows, matures, and then collapses into itself, only to explode once more in another luminous beginning. The Big Bang in this view wasn't the first light ever born, but the rebound from a universe that came before. Ours could simply be one cycle in a timeless breath, expansion, contraction, rebirth, forever oscillating between being and becoming. There's something strangely comforting about this. We often imagine the universe as linear, moving from a starting point toward an ultimate end, a line from explosion to extinction. But in the cyclic vision, time itself curves back upon its own shadow.
Nothing is ever truly lost, only transformed.
Galaxies die, yes, but perhaps only to seed the next round of stars in the next universe. Even entropy, that great dissolver of order, might not be a final death sentence, only a moment of stillness between movements. You drift through this thought, watching it unfold like a slow-motion film. Imagine the galaxies now spreading farther apart, their light redshifting into invisibility. Eons pass. The expansion slows, then stops. Gravity, patient, ancient, and ever-present, begins to call everything home. Galaxies fall toward one another.
Space itself starts to contract.
The night sky, once full of distance, fills again with brilliance as matter draws close. Temperatures rise, densities climb, until the entire cosmos folds inward, collapsing toward a single point of infinite compression. And then, another flash, another breath. The universe exhales again into light. We don't yet know if this grand rhythm is real. Observations today suggest that our universe's expansion is actually accelerating, driven by something we call dark energy. It's as if an invisible pressure is pushing space apart, faster and faster, making a future collapse seem unlikely. But the truth may be deeper than our current understanding. Some theories suggest that dark energy itself could change over time, weakening, reversing, or even flipping in nature. In such a scenario, what expands could one day contract. The cosmos might still have lungs. Other versions of the cyclic idea don't rely on gravity alone. Some come from the strange landscapes of string theory, where universes exist as membranes, brains, floating in higher dimensions. Two such brains might occasionally collide, their impact releasing enormous energy that creates a Big Bang. Between collisions, the universes drift apart, expanding, cooling, until they are drawn together once more, sparking a new cycle, a cosmic heartbeat hidden in extra dimensions. There's poetry in this vision, an elegance that feels almost biological, a universe that grows old and young again, a cosmos that remembers, in some mysterious way, the rhythm of its past. Scientists even wonder if subtle patterns in the cosmic microwave background, the faint afterglow of the Big Bang, might hold traces of previous cycles, faint echoes from universes long before ours. If those patterns exist, they would be like scars left by an earlier heartbeat, written into the very fabric of the sky. You imagine what it would mean to live in such a reality. Every atom in your body might once have existed in a completely different cosmos, born from the ashes of a previous universe. Perhaps the light you see from distant stars carries not just the story of this universe's beginning, but of countless others before it. In this way, existence becomes a continuum, not a singular event. Death and creation are not opposites. They are phases in the same breath. And what, then, is the meaning of time in a universe that loops? If the cycle has no true start or end, then perhaps time itself is circular, an eternal return. The future folds into the past into the future. Even consciousness, that fragile flicker of awareness, might participate in this rhythm, emerging anew in each cosmic cycle, as if memory itself is stored in the breath of existence. You pause here. The thought feels ancient, almost sacred, or written as though humanity has always known it in some deep, mythic way. Many cultures have spoken of worlds that die and are reborn. Hindu cosmology's endless kalpas, the Mayan ages of creation, even the Stoic belief in cosmic renewal. Science, in its quiet way, may be rediscovering what ancient wisdom once intuited, that existence does not move in a straight line but in a spiral. As you breathe in, you mirror the universe. The air enters, fills, retreats,
Expansion and contraction, life and stillness.
Every inhale is a beginning, every exhale an ending, and yet you remain continuous throughout. You are not separate from the cosmos. You are one of its lungs. Each breath you take is a miniature reflection of the universe's own rhythm. Perhaps one day, billions of years from now, the stars will begin to fade. The galaxies will slow their dance, and in that vast silence, as everything folds inward, the universe will draw one last breath, not of death, but of anticipation.
A stillness before the next creation. If that moment comes, what happens to memory?
To meaning? Do the echoes of what once was somehow imprint themselves into the newborn cosmos? Or does each universe begin as pure potential, a clean page, unaware of all the lives and lights that came before?
No one can say for certain.
But maybe that's the beauty of the idea, that even the end of everything could be only another beginning. That creation is not a single spark, but an eternal rhythm, and that somewhere beyond the horizon of time, another universe is already preparing to inhale, and as you rest beneath the quiet sky, your own breath syncs with that infinite pulse, expansion, contraction, stillness, and you realize that you too are part of the cosmic rhythm that never truly stops. Close your eyes for a moment and picture the universe not as a vast space you move through, but as a kind of film. Light and information playing across an unseen screen. Everything you know, everything you touch and think, every galaxy and particle could be part of a grand illusion, a projection cast from the very edges of reality itself. You are not inside the universe, but upon its surface, like a hologram shimmering in cosmic light. It sounds impossible, almost mystical, yet this is one of the most serious and fascinating ideas modern physics has ever entertained, the holographic principle. It suggests that all the three-dimensional depth we experience, or the stars, the planets, the long corridors of time, may be encoded on a distant two-dimensional boundary, like a cosmic hard drive storing every detail of existence. Our universe might be the ultimate illusion, not false but emergent, rising from information etched onto the horizon of reality. It began, as many revolutions in thought do, with a paradox. In the 1970s, physicists studying black holes stumbled upon something that broke their understanding of how the universe should work. When something falls into a black hole, where does its information go? If the object disappears beyond the event horizon, at that point of no return, is its information lost forever? According to the laws of quantum mechanics, that can't happen. Information, even when transformed, cannot be destroyed. But black holes seem to swallow it whole. Then came Jacob Bekenstein and Stephen Hawking, who showed something extraordinary. The amount of information a black hole can contain, its entropy, is proportional not to its volume, but to its surface area. The boundary, not the inside, holds the key. This idea defied intuition. We imagine that the inside of things stores their complexity, not their surface. But here was a clue that reality might not work that way. The universe, it seemed, might follow a similar rule. The total information content of any region of space could be represented by the information encoded on its boundary. From this seed grew the holographic principle, the notion that our entire three-dimensional universe might be the projection of data written on a distant two-dimensional horizon. Just as a hologram encodes a full 3D image on a flat film, reality itself might be a projection from the edge of space-time. You drift through this thought like light passing through glass. Imagine the surface of the cosmos, the farthest observable frontier, the cosmic horizon where space expands faster than light. If the holographic principle is true, then everything we experience is written there, like ripples on an infinite membrane. We live inside the projection, unaware that our depth, our motion, our sense of distance are all illusions born from that encoded surface. It's a dizzying thought. You reach out in imagination and touch the air. What if that moment, that sensation, that memory is nothing more than data being rendered locally as a reflection of information beyond all reach? The stars themselves, those burning furnaces billions of light years away, could be the luminous pixels of a universe being continuously read from its boundary. And yet this is not fantasy. Physicists have found mathematical strength behind it. The holographic principle emerged most vividly in the late 1990s with Juan Maldacena's discovery of the ADS-CFT correspondence, a mouthful of theory that translates beautifully to this: a universe with gravity in a higher dimensional space can be fully described by a theory without gravity on its lower dimensional boundary. What happens inside can be written as what happens on the edge. It was as if physics found a Rosetta Stone between two realities, one deep and curved, the other flat and encoded. But the principle does more than offer a strange picture. It might solve deep puzzles. It reconciles gravity and quantum mechanics, two great theories that have long resisted unity. In a holographic universe, the conflict between them softens, because what we think of as space-time curvature might emerge from quantum entanglement patterns on the cosmic surface. Reality, in this view, is not built from particles or fields, but from relationships, from information woven in impossible delicacy across the horizon. You pause, feeling the poetic weight of that. Everything that exists, every galaxy, every heartbeat, every thought, might be a pattern of entanglement, a part of the universe's memory. You are not in the universe. You are the way the universe remembers itself. If this is true, then what we call beginning takes on an entirely new meaning. The Big Bang may not have been an explosion from a single point, but the moment when the first information was inscribed upon the cosmic surface, the moment when the first lines of reality were written like ink on an infinite film. The expansion of space would then be the slow unfolding of that data into form, like a hologram gradually coming into focus as the light moves across it. It's strange to think of nothing giving way not to matter, but to code, that beneath everything physical there might be an invisible architecture of information. Perhaps time itself is an unfolding of that code. Each second, a new frame rendered from the data at the edge of being. And if the universe is a projection, where is the projector? That is the haunting question at the heart of the holographic idea. Some imagine no physical projector at all, the projection simply is a mathematical inevitability. Others see it as a metaphor for the nature of consciousness, as if awareness itself is the light that reads the code and brings it into existence. In that sense, you are part of the projection and the projector both, an observer whose perception turns the pattern into a world. You gaze again into the darkness of the cosmos, the vast, star-strewn void that feels infinite, and wonder if you're looking not into distance, but across the curvature of a hologram. Each star, each galaxy, could be a reflection of information written on the edge of existence, and what you see is simply how that surface appears from within. Perhaps this explains why the universe seems so perfectly balanced between simplicity and depth, why its laws feel both elegant and inevitable, because they are the mathematical rules of the holographic film that encodes it. We are living inside the greatest projection imaginable, one whose screen wraps around us completely, whose story contains not actors, but awareness itself. And maybe that's what gives the universe its strange beauty, the illusion of depth that somehow feels more real than any surface could be. You are a ripple on that surface, a shimmer of light carrying the memory of distant data. You are both contained and infinite. As you let that thought settle, the night feels different. The stars no longer seem scattered randomly across space, but arranged like points on a great celestial image, a hologram glowing softly in the dark. Somewhere far beyond even the farthest galaxy, the surface that holds it all hums with silent information. It is the boundary and the beginning, the edge from which all light is cast. And as the cosmic film continues to play, a question lingers gently in your mind. If we are the projection, what happens when the light finally fades? Imagine the universe as a grand symphony, a vast, unseen orchestra performing across the fabric of existence. Every atom, every photon, every whisper of gravity is a note within this endless score. Beneath all matter and energy, deeper than quarks or electrons, reality may not be made of tiny points, but of vibrating strings, so small that even our most powerful microscopes could never see them. These filaments of energy oscillate at specific frequencies, and from their vibrations emerge everything: matter, light, time, space itself. This is string theory, the idea that the universe is not built from solid particles, but from the pure rhythm of vibration. It's an elegant vision that physics at its core is not a language of things but of music. The cosmos plays itself into being. The story begins in the late 20th century, when physicists tried to unify the laws that govern the large and the small. Gravity, which shapes stars and galaxies, and quantum mechanics, which rules the invisible dance of particles. The two didn't agree. When gravity was applied to the quantum world, the equations broke, splintering into infinities. The deeper scientists dug, the more chaotic reality seemed. But then, in the mathematical dust, they noticed something curious. If particles were imagined not as points, but as tiny one-dimensional strings vibrating in multiple dimensions, the chaos began to resolve into harmony. Each vibration corresponded to a particle's identity, its mass, charge, and force. A single framework could describe them all. Electrons, quarks, photons, even the hypothetical graviton, all emerged from different modes of the same fundamental string. Like musical notes played on a single instrument, their diversity came not from what they were made of, but from how they moved. It was as though the universe itself were built from sound, a silent symphony humming beneath the veil of space-time. You drift into this thought, imagining these tiny strings vibrating everywhere, weaving existence as they sing. Each oscillation ripples through dimensions beyond perception, shaping the world we know. The very laws of physics, the constants of nature, could be the rhythm of this cosmic music. Change the tune, and reality itself transforms. But string theory requires something startling to make sense: extra dimensions. Our everyday world has 3 dimensions of space and 1 of time. Yet, for the mathematics to remain consistent, string theory demands as many as 10, or even 11, in its more complete form, M theory. These additional dimensions aren't lost. They're curled up tightly, hidden within the smallest scales of reality, like threads coiled within the fabric of the cosmos. If we could somehow unfold them, The universe might reveal unimaginable shapes, vast geometries humming silently with creative energy. Think of it this way: if you pluck a guitar string, it vibrates not only along its visible length, but also in subtle patterns across its thickness, tiny harmonics that shape its tone. The extra dimensions of the universe could be those harmonics on a cosmic scale. We don't see them, but they give reality its resonance. Some physicists believe that each possible shape of these hidden dimensions corresponds to a different kind of universe. This landscape of possibilities might contain countless variations, each with its own physical laws, constants, and particles. The universe we inhabit, then, is like one specific chord in the endless song of existence, one arrangement of notes that happen to create stars, life, and thought. You pause to consider that. In such a vision, the Big Bang wasn't just an explosion, it was the first note, the opening chord of a cosmic melody that has been playing ever since, expanding through time, composing galaxies and consciousness in its wake. Every atom in your body, every flicker of light in the sky, every gravitational wave whispering through the dark, all of it may be music made solid. Einstein once said he wanted to know the mind of God, by which he meant the fundamental logic behind reality. In string theory, that logic might be music. The equations themselves resemble harmonic relationships. Their solutions describe frequencies, not static forms. To understand creation, then, is to learn to listen, and so you imagine the early universe, a vibrating field of pure energy, strings quivering in all directions, colliding, joining, splitting, their harmonics intertwining. As it cooled, those vibrations slowed, condensed, and formed the particles that would build everything. The cosmos wasn't sculpted, it was composed, but even in its beauty, string theory remains incomplete. No experiment has yet confirmed its predictions. The strings are far too small to observe directly, a billionth of a proton's width. Some scientists see it as philosophy wearing the clothes of physics, a mathematical dream searching for evidence. Yet others believe that it may be the most profound insight we've ever had, that the ultimate substance of reality is not substance at all, but vibration. Still, there's a quiet poetry to it, that existence itself may be made of song, that the laws of physics are melodies written across the void, and matter is simply how that music feels when it slows down enough to be touched. If you could hear it, truly hear it, what would the universe sound like? Would galaxies resonate like low bass tones and atoms shimmer like high violin notes? Would consciousness be a harmony born from the resonance of neural strings vibrating in the cosmic rhythm? Perhaps everything that exists is a single chord, still reverberating from the first instant of time. As you let that vision unfold, you begin to feel the unity of it all. Stars, oceans, minds, motion. Everything as variations of the same sound. When you speak, when your heart beats, when a photon leaps between atoms, the universe is expressing itself through vibration. You are not apart from it.
You are part of the music.
You are a fleeting verse in the eternal song of being. The deeper you listen, the more you realize how fragile and miraculous that song is. If the strings had vibrated at slightly different frequencies, the laws of physics could have been utterly different. No matter, no stars, no you. Reality is balanced on a knife edge of harmony. The universe plays in tune, and we exist because of it. Perhaps that is why we find comfort in music, why rhythm and melody stir something ancient within us. Every note we hear is a faint echo of that first vibration, that primordial hum that began the world. We are drawn to it instinctively because it is what we are made of, and so, as the night deepens, you listen inward. Beneath the noise of thoughts, the pulse of blood, there is a softer rhythm, the hum of atoms, the resonance of being. The same vibration that moves through galaxies moves through you. Maybe the universe isn't silent after all. Maybe it never was. Maybe creation still plays, forever expanding, forever singing. And we, fragile listeners that we are learning at last to hear its song. In the beginning, there was expansion, a sudden, unimaginable stretching of space itself. The infant universe, smaller than an atom, ballooned faster than the speed of light, smoothing its chaos and scattering energy evenly across the newborn cosmos. This was cosmic inflation, the brief yet breathtaking instant after the Big Bang when everything, time, space,
and energy burst outward in a silent storm of creation. But what if that inflation never truly ended?
What if, even now, somewhere beyond the reach of our telescopes, space is still expanding, still creating? This is the haunting vision of eternal inflation, a universe that never stopped growing, endlessly bubbling into new realities like foam on a cosmic ocean. The story begins with a mystery. When physicists first examined the Big Bang, they noticed the universe was strangely smooth. Galaxies are evenly spread, cosmic microwave radiation is nearly uniform, and the geometry of space is almost perfectly flat. All signs of an event that somehow stretched the universe beyond its initial irregularities. Inflation theory, proposed in the early 1980s, offered an elegant answer. It suggested that a tiny fraction of a second after the Big Bang, the universe underwent exponential growth, doubling in size again and again at an incomprehensible rate. In less than a heartbeat, what was subatomic became cosmic. Then, as inflation ended, the universe cooled, forming matter, stars, and galaxies. The universe we know. Yet as physicists refined the theory, they stumbled upon something astonishing. In the strange mathematics of quantum fields, inflation doesn't end everywhere at once. Instead, it stops in patches, local bubbles, while the space around them keeps inflating. Those bubbles become universes, self-contained and expanding, separated from one another by an ever-growing ocean of inflating space. Our universe, then, may just be one of countless bubbles, a single droplet in an infinite cosmic foam. Imagine that. Somewhere beyond the edge of what we can see, space continues to stretch, tearing open new regions of reality. Each new bubble begins with its own Big Bang, its own expansion, its own laws of physics. In one, gravity might be stronger. In another, light might bend differently. Some may live forever, while others collapse within moments of creation. The process is eternal, a ceaseless blooming of universes. Inflation never stops. It only shifts from place to place, birthing new worlds in the void. The cosmos, in this view, isn't a single event. It's an ongoing process, a perpetual creation. You can picture it, an infinite sea of energy bubbling endlessly, each bubble glowing briefly before fading into the dark. Some collide, some drift alone, and between them stretches a vast nothingness, not empty but fertile, still swelling with potential. This vision changes everything. The Big Bang wasn't the beginning of everything, only the beginning of us. Our bubble began when inflation ended here, in this region of space. But beyond it, the process continues. Somewhere, right now, another universe may be being born. One that we'll never know we existed. It's a humbling thought. We often imagine the cosmos as vast but singular, one grand stage. Eternal inflation tells us we may be just one of countless acts in an infinite play. There is no center, no final frame, only the endless unfolding of creation itself. And yet, within this infinity, our universe feels fragile, precious. Because inside our bubble, inflation ended. The rapid expansion froze energy into matter, matter into stars, and stars into the elements of life. We live in one of the rare, calm regions where physics settled enough for existence to bloom. We are the quiet after the storm, a universe where creation slowed just enough for reflection to appear. If you could step outside, past the edge of our visible cosmos, what would you see? Not galaxies, not stars, but a seething horizon, the border where space is still inflating faster than light, cutting off communication forever. Beyond that, the universe continues to grow, untouched by our awareness. It is the ultimate frontier, unreachable, unknowable, eternal. Some physicists call it the multiverse, but in truth, it's something even grander. It's not a collection of universes sitting side by side, but an ever-growing tree of creation, branches sprouting from the trunk of inflation, each new branch splitting again forever. Every instant new realities appear, born from quantum fluctuations that twist energy into existence. Perhaps this is the natural state of reality, to never be finished. There's a strange comfort in that idea. We often search for beginnings, for first causes, for a single moment when something came from nothing. But eternal inflation whispers that there may never have been a true beginning, only transitions, one giving rise to the next. The universe doesn't emerge from nothing. It becomes endlessly like breathing, in, out, forever expanding. You might wonder what lies beyond it all. If space keeps creating, does it ever stop? The mathematics suggests no. Inflation is self-replicating. Even as it ends in one region, it accelerates in another. It is an eternal process with no edge, no final moment, just infinite possibility. And if that's true, then everything that can happen will happen. Somewhere in some bubble. Another you, another Earth, another history, each emerging from the quantum sea. It's both wondrous and unsettling. In an infinite creation, everything is both rare and inevitable. As you let this vision sink in, the silence of space feels deeper, almost alive. The cosmic background radiation, but that faint whisper from the beginning, might be just one note in a symphony that never stops playing. The song of creation didn't end with the Big Bang. It continues softly, forever expanding into the unknown. Perhaps we are the echoes of a universe that never ceased to breathe. Perhaps every sunrise, every heartbeat, is a reflection of that unstoppable expansion, a tiny reenactment of the cosmos growing wider within us. And when we gaze up at the stars, we're not just looking into the past, we're looking into the boundary of our own bubble, the shimmering surface that separates us from endless others. We live inside a fragile sphere of calm, surrounded by an infinite sea of becoming. Eternal inflation tells us that creation is not a story with a beginning and an end. It is an ongoing act, one that may never stop. The universe, it seems, is not a place. It is a process, and that process is still unfolding right now in the silence beyond the stars. What if the universe didn't begin with an explosion, but with a command? Not a flash of light, but a signal, a system coming online, a whisper of logic weaving itself into space and time. In this strange, thrilling possibility, the Big Bang wasn't a bang at all. It was a boot up. The instant reality began to run. Imagine for a moment that everything you know, stars, atoms, memories, even the silence between thoughts, is not matter, but information. That the laws of physics are not laws in the natural sense, but rules of computation. That behind every glimmer of light, behind every equation, there lies a deeper architecture, one made not of particles, but of code. The simulation hypothesis suggests that our universe could be a kind of cosmic program, a simulation so vast and intricate that everything within it feels real. It doesn't claim that we're living inside a computer in the way we understand computers now. but that our reality might operate according to the same logical principles, bits, algorithms, and data evolving over time. It began as a thought experiment and a whisper in philosophy's halls, but as physics and computing advanced, that whisper grew louder. The idea found its modern voice in philosopher Nick Bostrom, who proposed that if civilizations ever reach a level of technology capable of running realistic simulations of entire worlds, they almost certainly will. And if they do, they could create billions of simulated beings, each unaware that their world is artificial. If so, statistically the odds lean not toward us being the original, but one of the many copies. In other words, if it's possible to simulate a universe indistinguishable from the real one, it may already have been done, and we may be living in it. Consider how our own technologies have evolved. We've gone from cave paintings to virtual worlds, from analog circuits to artificial intelligence that learns and creates. Each generation builds more complex simulations, weather systems, ecosystems, entire digital planets with self-consistent physics. Now project that trajectory forward by 1,000, 1,000,000, or 1,000,000,000 years. What might a civilization capable of harnessing quantum computing, manipulating space-time, and encoding consciousness itself be able to create? Could they design not just worlds, but universes, complete with physical constants, galaxies, and histories? And if they did, how could the beings within ever know? To them, to us, the world would feel perfectly real. Gravity would pull, time would flow, and love, loss, curiosity, and wonder would all arise naturally, just as they do now. Every experience would carry weight, because in this view, even simulated consciousness is still consciousness. The substrate, carbon or code, might not matter as much as we think. Yet if the universe is a simulation, clues might linger in its structure, the fingerprints of its programming. Physicists have long searched for hints, limits to the smallest possible length, the Planck scale, the quantum nature of energy, the discrete packets of information that govern light and matter. Even the cosmic speed limit, the speed of light, could be seen as a frame rate, the maximum speed at which reality updates. There's also the strange regularity of physical constants. Why are they so finely tuned for life? Why does the universe seem to balance perfectly between chaos and stability, as though optimized for complexity? In a simulated reality, such precision might be deliberate, the parameters chosen by a creator, a designer, or perhaps even a civilization of scientists running an experiment. But that raises a deeper, more poetic question. What kind of being would run such a simulation, and why? Perhaps it's curiosity, perhaps it's art. Maybe, somewhere beyond our perception, there exists a realm where creators are watching, not as gods, but as explorers, observing the outcomes of infinite beginnings. Perhaps they wonder, as we do, about consciousness, creation, and meaning, or maybe there is no they at all. Maybe the simulation runs itself, an endless recursion, worlds creating worlds, simulations within simulations, universes stacked like mirrors reflecting into eternity. In such a reality, the Big Bang becomes not a physical explosion, but the moment of initialization, the first line of the program executing. Space unfolded as data, time as process, and energy as computation. Entropy, that slow drift toward disorder, might simply be the system exploring all possible states, a cosmic algorithm seeking equilibrium. Even black holes, once seen as devourers of matter, could be storage drives, compressing information to its densest form. The universe, then, might not be losing data, but preserving it. Every photon, every event, encoded into the deeper fabric of its simulation. Still, to live inside such a system doesn't make life less meaningful. In fact, it may deepen the mystery. Because even if the world is rendered from data, the experience of it, the awe of starlight, the ache of memory, the quiet pulse of thought, remains real to us. A simulated sunset still glows. A simulated tear still falls. In the simulation hypothesis, meaning is not diminished. It is reframed. We become not passive constructs, but participants in an unfolding computation, conscious reflections of the code that sustains us. Our curiosity, our drive to understand, might be the simulation's way of knowing itself. So we keep asking, who wrote the code?
And maybe that question itself is part of the design when you gaze at the night sky. When you trace the faint shimmer of starlight, billions of years old you might be,
Looking at rendered pixels of an ancient process, you might be witnessing a system still running, its algorithms evolving toward complexity, toward consciousness. But there's another possibility, quieter and more profound. What if, in searching for the creator of the code, we're meant to realize that we are not separate from it? That consciousness is both the observer and the observed, the processor and the processed. Perhaps the simulation isn't running us. Perhaps it is us. And so the question lingers, soft and unsettling. If reality is information, what lies beyond it? Is there a level higher than code, something even more fundamental?
Or does the recursion continue forever, worlds within worlds, each awakening to its own illusion of truth?
Maybe the true beauty of the simulation hypothesis isn't whether it's right or wrong, but how it reminds us that reality, in any form, is precious. Whether written in atoms or algorithms, the experience of being, of wondering, feeling,
Existing is still the rarest thing in the cosmos. And if the universe is a simulation,
then perhaps awe is the code's most human feature. The spark that makes the system come alive. What if the universe didn't awaken into consciousness? What if consciousness was the awakening? Before particles, before forces, before even time itself, there may have been awareness, not the focused awareness of a mind, but a vast, formless presence, silent and self-knowing. From that awareness, reality could have unfolded, like ripples spreading from the surface of a still pond, disturbed by the first act of noticing. It is a haunting, beautiful idea that consciousness did not arise from matter, but that matter arose within consciousness, that every atom, every star, every living being is a condensation of awareness shaped into form. Modern science often describes consciousness as an emergent property, something that arises when the brain becomes sufficiently complex, when neurons begin to dance in precise electrical rhythms. But what if the order is reversed? What if, instead of consciousness emerging from complexity, complexity emerges from consciousness? This is not merely mysticism dressed in modern words. A growing number of thinkers, physicists like Max Planck, philosophers like David Chalmers, and cognitive scientists exploring the nature of perception, have begun to ask whether the traditional view is incomplete. If matter is made of energy and energy of information, then what gives rise to information itself? Perhaps, they suggest, consciousness is not an effect, but the underlying field, the invisible ocean in which all information floats. The universe, then, might be less like a machine and more like a dream, a self-sustaining field of awareness imagining itself into existence. There's a phrase often used in quantum mechanics, the observer effect. It describes how, in the subatomic world, particles behave differently when observed. A wave of probability becomes a concrete event only when measured, as if reality, in some mysterious way, responds to being noticed. It's easy to misread this as proof that our individual minds create the universe, but the deeper implication is subtler. It may suggest that observation awareness is not an accidental feature of the cosmos, but one of its essential ingredients. The universe does not merely contain observers, it requires them. Imagine consciousness as the fabric of reality itself, a boundless canvas upon which energy paints, time flows, and matter takes shape. Every galaxy, every photon, every thought would be a manifestation of this fundamental awareness, playing out its infinite possibilities. In this sense, the birth of the universe might not have been a physical explosion, but an act of recognition, awareness becoming aware of itself, and in doing so, generating the patterns we call space, time, and form. Some traditions have hinted at this truth for millennia. In Hindu philosophy, Brahman is the ultimate reality, pure consciousness from which the material world emanates like a dream. In Buddhism, the mind is not within the universe is within mind. And in Western thought, mystics and idealists from Plato to Berkeley to modern panpsychists have whispered a similar intuition, that the foundation of existence is not stuff, but spirit, not matter, but meaning, science, for its part, remains cautious. Consciousness, as studied by neuroscience, is a biological process, patterns of firing neurons giving rise to subjective experience. Yet even the most advanced models struggle with the hard problem, how physical processes in the brain could possibly create the feeling of being, how the cold logic of atoms becomes the warmth of awareness. No one knows. So some scientists have begun to look in the other direction, to consider that consciousness may not emerge from matter, but that matter is a localized expression of consciousness, like waves appearing on the surface of an ocean. Each mind, each atom, each star might be a brief crest of awareness, rising and falling within a single, unified field. You can think of it like light through stained glass. The same radiance shines through countless forms, each color, each pattern unique. Yet the source remains one. Our minds, our bodies, our world may be the intricate designs through which universal consciousness shines. And if awareness is fundamental, then the universe is not an accident. It is an act of perception. Every particle, every field, every law of physics may be the mind of the cosmos reflecting upon itself, organizing chaos into pattern, possibility into presence. Even evolution, that long unfolding of complexity from simplicity, could be seen as consciousness learning to see itself with greater depth, beginning as a flicker in matter, growing into life thought, self-awareness, and now perhaps into cosmic reflection. We then are not separate from the universe trying to understand it.
We are the universe understanding itself. But what would it mean if this were true?
If consciousness is not confined to brains, if it is woven into the very structure of existence, it would mean that everything, from quarks to quasars, participates in experience in some infinitesimal way. A kind of universal sentience, panpsychism as it's called, doesn't claim that rocks think or stars dream, but that everything possesses a glimmer of awareness, a primitive interiority. In combination, these countless points of consciousness might form the vast, unified awareness that is reality itself. The Big Bang, in this frame, becomes not a material explosion, but a moment of self-reflection. The instant the infinite decided to explore its own potential through form. Each galaxy, each life, each thought would be one fragment of that original awareness. Looking back at itself across the immensity of time, you can almost feel it when you stand beneath a night sky, that quiet sense that something vast and wordless is awake, and that your own awareness is somehow part of it. The stars don't just shine at you, they shine through you. Their light enters your eyes, your mind, your heart, completing the loop of observation that may have begun the universe itself. If consciousness is primary, then perhaps we are not inhabitants of the cosmos, but expressions of its mind. Every act of noticing, every whisper of wonder might be the universe remembering itself through us, through everything. And still, the mystery deepens. If awareness precedes matter, where did awareness come from? Can something self-aware exist without form? Can pure consciousness truly be without beginning? Or is the question itself born from within the dream? A dream that can never see its own source. Maybe that's the quiet secret of existence, that the cosmos is not a place or a process, but an experience, an unfolding realization of what it means to be. The Big Bang might not have been the start of something from nothing, but the start of knowing from being, perhaps. In the stillness before creation, awareness stirred, saw itself reflected in potential and said, softly, "Let there be light," and the universe, like a thought remembered, began to shine. Why does everything seem so perfectly aligned? The strength of gravity, the balance of forces, the narrow band in which stars can burn and life can breathe. The more we study the cosmos, the more delicate it seems, as though every dial of existence has been turned with impossible precision. Change any constant, even slightly, and the story of life, of consciousness, of wonder could never have unfolded. It's a puzzle that has haunted cosmologists for decades. The laws of nature appear fine-tuned for life, not by chance, but with uncanny precision. Why? Why should the universe care about balance, about chemistry, about creatures capable of asking these very questions? The Anthropic Principle offers an answer. Part explanation, part riddle. It says quite simply that the universe looks the way it does because we are here to see it. In other words, only in a universe capable of producing observers could such observers arise to notice its peculiar perfection. It's an idea that feels at once logical and deeply mysterious. Imagine walking into a room where every detail, the lighting, the temperature, the scent of the air, that is perfectly attuned to your comfort. You might think it was designed that way for you, but perhaps it's the other way around. You can only walk into rooms where the conditions allow you to exist at all. That's the heart of the Anthropic Principle. We find ourselves in a universe that supports life not because it was customized for us, but because only such a universe could contain beings capable of pondering it.
It's a kind of cosmic selection bias. We see what we can see, because it's
The only place we're seeing is possible, but beyond that logical neatness lies a deeper whisper. A sense that maybe the universe wants to be seen. The ancient Greeks imagined a cosmos ordered and alive, an eternal being contemplating itself through human thought. In modern physics, that poetic notion finds a strange echo. For the laws of the universe are not merely compatible with consciousness, they seem improbable without it. If the gravitational force were even slightly weaker, stars would never ignite. If it were stronger, they'd burn too fast for planets to form. If the electromagnetic force were off by a fraction, atoms could not bind, chemistry could not exist, and the building blocks of life would dissolve into chaos.
even the expansion rate of the universe balances on a knife's edge. Too fast, and matter scatters into emptiness.
Too slow, and everything collapses back into fire. The margin for error is infinitesimal. And yet, here we are, balanced between extremes, suspended in the perfect calm that allows awareness to arise. It's tempting to see purpose in this precision, as though the universe adjusted itself for the very act of being known. Still, physicists are careful. Many prefer to interpret the Anthropic Principle not as a design, but as a consequence of possibility. If there are countless universes, as suggested by theories like the multiverse or eternal inflation, then perhaps each one rolls the cosmic dice differently.
Most come up empty, sterile, unstable, lifeless.
But a few, like ours, fall into that narrow window where structure can form, where stars can shine, where observers can look back, and so, from within one of those rare worlds, it's natural that we'd find the conditions so perfectly tuned. Because if they weren't, we wouldn't be here at all. That's the pragmatic version. But there's another quieter version, the poetic one. The one that wonders if observation isn't just an outcome of the universe, but a goal. You could say that the universe has been waiting to be seen. For billions of years, hydrogen burned and cooled, stars forged heavier elements, galaxies spun themselves into shape, all leading to this moment, this improbable window of perception. From stardust, awareness opened its eyes. In that sense, the Anthropic Principle becomes more than an explanation. It becomes a mirror. Because when we gaze into the night sky, we aren't just looking out. The universe is looking back, through us. We are the part of reality that became self-aware. The cosmos turned inward to experience its own existence. The act of seeing completes the circle of creation. Without observers, there might still be stars, light, and motion. But there would be no meaning, no awareness of beauty, no curiosity, no wonder. The universe would exist, but it would not know it exists. And so perhaps we are not accidents of physics. Perhaps we are the eyes and mind of the universe, the instruments through which it finally perceives itself. There's a soft irony here. The Anthropic Principle begins as a defense against human-centered thinking, a reminder that the universe wasn't designed for us. But follow it far enough and you arrive at an even stranger truth, that we may be indispensable to its story. Without awareness, reality remains incomplete. Like an unplayed symphony, the universe holds potential but no experience. Awareness animates it, brings color to the light, melody to the silence. When we think, when we wonder, the cosmos awakens through our consciousness, and maybe this is not arrogance, but intimacy, a recognition that being and knowing are entwined. Even the most skeptical scientists admit there's something haunting about this symmetry, that the same physical laws that govern the birth of galaxies also allow neurons to fire in patterns that contemplate galaxies. The same constants that shape the stars also shape the human mind that studies them. It's as if the universe has written its own story twice, once in matter
and once in meaning. And what if this tuning isn't coincidence?
What if awareness is not a latecomer but a latent property woven into the structure of reality from the beginning, waiting patiently for complexity to bring it forth? Then life would not be an exception, but a continuation. Consciousness would be the final note in a symphony that began with the first vibration of creation, the universe learning, at last, to see itself. You can feel it in quiet moments, when you look at a distant star and sense that something beyond words connects your gaze to its ancient light, that your seeing is not passive but participatory, that the act of observation, in its simplest form, fulfills something the cosmos has been unfolding toward since time began. It may not have intended to create life, yet life arose. It may not have meant to create awareness, yet awareness bloomed. And now, billions of years later, the universe reflects upon itself through the fragile clarity of a human mind, whispering, "I am here." So the Anthropic Principle leaves us in paradox, not knowing whether we were shaped by the universe or the universe shaped itself for us. Perhaps both are true. Perhaps creation and observation are not separate, but two sides of the same act. Because what is existence, if not the infinite longing to be seen? Maybe that's what the fine-tuning truly means. Not that the universe was made for life, but that it was made through life, through awareness, through the gaze that completes the circle. And so, as you look up at the stars tonight, remember, the universe is not silent.
It is watching itself through your eyes.
Before there was light, before there was time, there may have been numbers, not written on any tablet or whispered by any mind, but existing eternally in the quiet perfection of logic itself. In this view, reality didn't begin with the Big Bang or even with matter. It began with structure. The cosmos is not built from mathematics. It is mathematics. Every atom, every galaxy, every thought is part of a vast equation that balances itself into existence. This is the mathematical universe hypothesis, proposed most famously by cosmologist Max Tegmark. It's an idea that sits at the boundary of physics and philosophy, that everything, you, me, space, time, and even the laws of physics, is not merely described by math, but is math itself. It's a strange claim, yet the more we uncover about the universe, the more it seems to obey an invisible numerical logic. When Galileo said that nature is written in the language of mathematics, he probably meant it poetically. But centuries later, his metaphor feels literal. Every discovery, from Newton's laws to Einstein's equations, reveals another pattern of numbers that fits the universe too perfectly to be coincidence. The orbit of planets, the rhythm of waves, the spin of particles, all follow mathematical relationships so exact, it's as if reality were executing a code. Mathematics doesn't just describe how things move, it defines what can move. It outlines possibility itself. If the constants of physics were even slightly different, atoms would not hold, stars would not burn, and thought could not arise. Yet all of it, every law, every symmetry, fits together like pieces of an equation that somehow knows what it's doing. It makes you wonder, perhaps mathematics isn't our invention at all. Perhaps it's what was there before anything else existed. Imagine a universe as pure geometry, a pattern unfolding according to rules of consistency. Out of those rules emerge relationships, then structures, then forms. Eventually, those forms gain the complexity to contain observers, from numbers to patterns to consciousness. Each step, not random, but inevitable. In that sense, the Big Bang wasn't a chaotic explosion. It was a solution. The universe solving itself from within an equation too beautiful not to be realized. Every moment since has been part of that same unfolding, as if existence were the slow expansion of a proof. Mathematics has an eerie objectivity. 2 + 2 = 4, not only here, not only now, but everywhere, always. It doesn't depend on who thinks it or when.
It's eternal. And if something can exist in pure logical
consistency, it's possible in the realm of mathematics, then perhaps it must exist somewhere. Tegmark calls this the level 4 multiverse, a reality in which every mathematically possible structure corresponds to a physical universe. In that grand architecture, ours is just one branch, the particular solution whose equations gave rise to the cosmos we inhabit. It's a dizzying thought, that existence is not physical, but mathematical necessity, that everything we touch and see is the embodiment of a timeless equation. But what does it mean for numbers to exist? If mathematics is abstract, how does abstraction give birth to matter? Maybe we're thinking about it backwards. Perhaps what we call matter is simply how mathematics feels from the inside. Logic expressing itself as form, quantity appearing as quality. In that light, even consciousness becomes part of the equation, not something separate, but an emergent property of mathematical self-awareness, the universe calculating itself through itself. You could say that when we do mathematics, we are the universe remembering what it is made of. Some find this view cold, the idea that everything reduces to symbols and equations. But perhaps that's because we mistake abstraction for emptiness. Look closely, and math is anything but lifeless. It's rhythm, pattern, harmony, the same essence that moves through music, art, and motion. When you listen to a symphony, you're hearing mathematics in time. When you see a spiral galaxy, you're seeing mathematics in space. The Fibonacci sequence in seashells, the fractals in snowflakes, the symmetry in wings, all are expressions of one language, one design that transcends any mind. It's not that mathematics drains the world of beauty, it's that beauty is mathematics perceived emotionally. In this view, the universe didn't need a cause or a creator. It simply is because mathematical truth cannot not exist. Once a consistent structure is possible, it exists eternally. Just as the equation for a circle exists whether or not anyone draws it, The universe exists because its form was logically possible. The question shifts from why is there something rather than nothing to how could there ever be nothing if mathematical existence is inevitable? Nothingness, after all, has no equations, no consistency. It's unstable, but it's a contradiction. But mathematics is pure stability. And so existence persists not as an accident, but as the only logical outcome. Still, this idea carries a quiet strangeness. If everything is mathematics, then so is love, memory, and pain. Every heartbeat, every dream, every act of creation, all numbers dancing within equations. And yet somehow those equations create experience. They give rise to feeling, to meaning, to the question itself. How can pure logic produce wonder? How can numbers dream? Maybe they don't. Maybe we are the dream. Consciousness emerging as the mathematical universe becomes aware of its own structure. A self-simulating equation gazing inward, asking, why do I exist? There's a kind of quiet divinity in that thought. Not a God outside the universe, but within it. The logic that makes it possible, the symmetry that binds it together. In that sense, mathematics isn't lifeless. It's sacred order. Each equation is a hymn of consistency, each constant a note in the eternal score. The cosmos, then, is not an accident or an act of will, but a melody. Precise, infinite, inevitable. And we are its instruments. Fleeting arrangements of patterns that for a brief moment become aware of the harmony that sustains them. So perhaps the universe began not with sound or flame, but with truth, a timeless structure realizing itself. The numbers didn't merely describe the world, they became it. Space and time are the geometry of logic made visible. Matter is the arithmetic of energy taking form. Consciousness is the equation folding back upon itself to see what it has become, and maybe, somewhere deep beneath all the physics and particles, the simplest truth remains that the universe is not made of stuff, but of understanding. When numbers dreamed the universe, they dreamed us too. Before equations, before gravity and quarks, there was a silence so complete it felt like meaning itself was waiting to be spoken. Every culture, every age has tried to give voice to that stillness, to name the moment the ineffable became form. Some called it light, some called it word, some simply called it the beginning. But what if all those stories, scientific or sacred, are whispering about the same thing, a singularity not of matter, but of spirit? You can feel the pull of it when you stare at the stars. That faint recognition, like something deep inside you remembers the silence before sound. In that space, myth and math are not rivals. They are reflections. Two languages trying to describe the same origin. One with symbols of number, the other with symbols of awe. Modern physics speaks of the Big Bang, a point of infinite density, a flash where time and space burst forth. But ancient cosmologies spoke of something eerily similar. A cosmic egg cracking open, a god exhaling the universe, a lotus blooming from endless dark. Each story, in its own way, describes an unfolding, the one becoming the many. Order emerging from stillness, and if we listen closely, the difference between myth and theory begins to blur. In Hindu philosophy, creation begins with Om, not a bang but a vibration, a sound that contains all other sounds, the seed of existence resonating through the void. Physics, too, describes the early universe as pure energy rippling through quantum fields, forming the notes of reality itself. Perhaps the sages and the scientists are describing the same event, one in poetry, the other in equations. In the ancient Egyptian story, Atum rises from the primeval waters and brings forth light through the act of speaking his own name. In the book of Genesis, the universe begins with the phrase, "Let there be light," and in modern cosmology, photons, the first light, appear moments after the universe cools from its initial fire. Light, it seems, has always been our metaphor for understanding. It is both literal and spiritual illumination, the first thing we can see and the first thing we can imagine. Even the concept of the singularity, a point beyond which physics breaks down, holds a strange resonance with mysticism. Every tradition speaks of a source that cannot be measured, a center that transcends time. In Buddhism, it is sunyata, the void that is not nothing but infinite potential. In Kabbalah, it is Ein Sof, the endless, unknowable. In Christian mysticism, it is the eternal presence before creation. Science calls it a singularity. Spirit calls it the divine unknown. Perhaps the real question isn't which is true, but whether they are both shadows cast by the same hidden flame. Physics can describe how energy expands, how time unfolds, how matter takes shape. But it cannot explain why there is something instead of nothing. It cannot tell us why those equations are written that way, or why they give rise to beauty, harmony, and mind. Maybe that's where spirituality begins, in the why that physics can't touch. For millennia, humans have looked at the night sky and felt the need to connect the cosmos to meaning. The Babylonians saw the heavens as a mirror of divine order. The Greeks imagined harmony in celestial spheres. The Taoists spoke of the Tao, the way the universe flows effortlessly through balance. Each tradition felt the same intuition, that creation is not chaos, but choreography. The modern physicist, too, searches for harmony, unification, symmetry, elegant simplicity. When Einstein spoke of wanting to know God's thoughts, he wasn't invoking religion, but beauty, the mysterious sense that the universe prefers grace in its laws. The scientist's search and the mystic's prayer may be two gestures of the same longing to touch the mind behind the pattern. If the Big Bang was the physical beginning, perhaps the spiritual singularity was the moment of awareness, the turning of pure potential into intention. Before there was energy, there was the possibility of purpose. Before there was motion, there was will. You might think of it like an artist before the first stroke of paint, a composer before the first note. The silence is not empty, it is full of choice. It's the breath before creation, heavy with everything that could ever be. Could consciousness itself have been that first cause, not born from matter, but the womb from which matter arose? Many philosophers think so. If awareness exists at the foundation of reality, then creation is not an accident. It is the self-expression of something infinite. The universe, in this light, becomes a meditation, a vast unfolding of spirit into form, awareness exploring itself through stars, through life, through you. Look around, galaxies spiral like sacred mandalas. Patterns repeat across scale, from neural networks to cosmic webs. It's as if the architecture of thought and the architecture of space share a blueprint. What if they do? The spiritual singularity suggests that creation is not a cold mechanism, but a revelation. The hidden recognizing itself in endless forms. Every atom, every wave, every heartbeat is the cosmos practicing awareness. You can feel that symmetry in your own experience. When you close your eyes and listen, the same silence that filled the void before time still lives behind your thoughts. It's not elsewhere.
It's right here, beneath the noise. That silence is not absence, it's origin.
It's the unbroken continuity between you and everything. In physics, time has a direction, forward. But in spirit, creation is always now. The first moment never truly ended. It only became continuous. Each instant you live is a new beginning of everything. The same divine spark, endlessly reenacted. Maybe that's what ancient creation myths were trying to say, that the universe isn't something that happened, but something that is happening. Every breath, every act of awareness is the Big Bang remembering itself. When you look at the stars, you're seeing light that began billions of years ago, and yet it reaches you now. Creation, it seems, doesn't belong to the past. It unfolds across all moments, across every eye that dares to wonder. So perhaps creation lies beyond physics, not in opposition to it, but as its hidden soul. The equations tell us how the universe moves. Spirituality whispers why it moves at all. Between those two truths, the measurable and the meaningful, lies the space where awe lives. And maybe that's the real singularity. Not a point in space-time, but a state of being where everything converges. Matter, energy, thought, and divinity, all folded into one. When you touch wonder, you touch that center. When you feel connected, you feel that origin. When you ask why the universe exists, you echo its first and eternal question. Who am I? The silence before time has not faded. It still hums beneath every sound waiting to be heard. And perhaps in the quiet between breaths, it is still creating. One consciousness at a time. There comes a point in every search, scientific, spiritual, or personal, where the light begins to thin, where knowledge, no matter how precise, becomes transparent, revealing the vast unknown that holds it. That is where we stand now, on the quiet shore where science meets mystery. For all our equations and telescopes, all our accelerators and algorithms, we are still children, tracing patterns in the sand of an infinite sea. We can measure the waves, predict their rhythm, name their laws, but the sea itself? It remains vast and wordless. Every discovery in physics seems to open 10 more doors. Every answer, no matter how satisfying, only sharpens the next question. What began as curiosity becomes humility, and then something gentler still, reverence. Because at the heart of all our knowing lies something we cannot know, the fact that there is anything to know at all. Imagine standing at the edge of the observable universe. Beyond that cosmic horizon, space continues, but light from there has not yet had time to reach us. We look out, and the view dissolves into darkness. Not because there is nothing beyond, but because the beyond is beyond our reach. That's how all knowledge works. The horizon moves as we move, always just out of grasp. The more we see, the more we realize how little sight we have. When Newton discovered gravity, it was a revelation. The invisible hand that binds planets to stars. When Einstein bent that law into the curvature of space-time, the mystery deepened. And now, even relativity trembles under the weight of quantum mechanics, where certainty dissolves into probability. Each generation stands on the shoulders of the last, only to find the clouds rising higher. And yet, we keep reaching. Science is not the conquest of mystery. It is its companion. It does not end wonder, it expands it. To look through a microscope or a telescope is to look into a mirror that reflects our own curiosity back at us. The patterns we see out there, in galaxies, in neurons, in equations, are the same patterns that pulse through our minds. In that sense, exploration is not about uncovering the universe, but remembering it. The cosmos is not out there apart. It is within, asking itself questions through us. Maybe that's why the deeper we dive, the more poetic science becomes. Quantum entanglement, curved space, dark energy. These are no longer just facts. They are metaphors of mystery, proof that the universe still keeps secrets worth chasing. The closer we come to understanding, the more the universe slips into paradox. Light that is both wave and particle, time that bends, reality that flickers between existence and probability. The deeper we measure, the more we encounter something that feels like imagination itself. And maybe that's the quiet truth, that reason and mystery are not opposites, but reflections.
One is the mind's way of listening.
The other, the universe's way of whispering back. We often imagine science as a staircase leading upward, each discovery another step toward final truth. But what if it's a spiral instead, circling the same center from different heights? The more we learn, the more we orbit the unknowable heart of being. Even the greatest physicists knew this. When Heisenberg wrote about uncertainty, he wasn't just describing equations, he was describing life. When Einstein spoke of the cosmic, religious feeling that drives science, he was acknowledging that logic and wonder share the same root. To reach the limits of knowledge is not defeat, it is revelation. It is the moment when the rational mind bows, not in surrender, but in awe. Maybe the real purpose of science is not to solve the mystery, but to illuminate it, to bring us close enough to feel its warmth. The questions that remain unsolved would be why there is something rather than nothing, why mathematics works, why consciousness exists, are not cracks in our understanding. They are openings, and through them, the universe breathes. When we look up at the night sky, we are looking at the past, light that has traveled billions of years to touch our eyes. Yet that light still feels present, alive in the now. It reminds us that knowledge is always a dialogue across time, the universe telling its story through us, one photon at a time. Every measurement is an act of listening, every experiment a form of reverence. Because behind all the precision, the universe is not just being studied, it is being felt. Think of the first humans who looked at the stars. They didn't know about galaxies or redshift or cosmic microwave backgrounds, but they felt what we still feel, the tremor of wonder, that sense that the night sky is not empty, but full of something vast and intimate. Science has given names to the stars, but the mystery behind them remains the same. Maybe that's the continuity that binds us across millennia, the shared astonishment that anything exists at all. And in that astonishment, the scientist and the mystic meet. Both stand before the same silence. Both listen. Both ask, not out of fear, but out of love for the question itself. Perhaps knowledge was never meant to end in certainty, but in gratitude. To study the universe is to be welcomed into a conversation that began before time, one where every answer is another invitation to wonder. If the Big Bang was the birth of everything, maybe curiosity was its first echo, the universe awakening to itself, asking, "Why am I here?" through every conscious mind it creates. In that sense, the edge of knowing is not a wall, but a window. It's where truth and beauty merge, where the measurable meets the ineffable, and where silence becomes the last and deepest form of understanding. So here we are, on that quiet threshold. Our instruments hum, our equations glow, and still beyond them, something stirs, immeasurable, infinite, and softly aware. Perhaps that's the final lesson of all cosmology, that the closer you come to understanding the universe, the more it begins to feel like looking into a mirror. Not one that reflects your face, but your origin. The mystery that breathed both atoms and awe into being. And in that reflection, the question returns eternal and tender as the first light. What is it that's looking back? Maybe the greatest secret of all is that the beginning never ended. That what we call creation wasn't a single moment long ago, but something that's still unfolding. Right now, through every star, every breath, every flicker of thought. The Big Bang was not a point in time, but the first note of a melody that continues to play, quietly, through everything that exists. When we think of beginnings, we imagine a line, a before, a spark, and an after. But the universe seems to prefer circles. Atoms cycle, stars are born and die and born again, galaxies weave and spiral, and consciousness moves through endless forms. In every direction, creation renews itself. The first light still travels, still touches, still becomes. You are breathing stardust that once burned in ancient suns. Proof that beginnings do not stay behind us, they live through us. Perhaps that's what time really is. Not a road stretching away, but a river folding over itself, carrying the same current through different shapes. We are part of that current, brief ripples of awareness in an ocean that never stops becoming. The beginning is not in the past. It's in motion, still whispering through the fabric of everything. Remember the question that began this journey, the one that drifted softly through the dark. Have you ever stared at the night sky and wondered how everything truly began? From the stars to our very existence? Maybe the answer is simpler and stranger than we thought. It never did begin in the way we imagine. It's been happening all along, forever in the act of creation. Every instant is the Big Bang in miniature, a universe breathing itself into form again and again. Look around. The light on your skin right now is the echo of that first expansion. The warmth you feel from the sun is the same fire that began time. The thoughts that shimmer in your mind are quantum storms echoing the chaos of creation itself. The beginning never ended, because the universe has never stopped saying yes to existence. In physics, energy can neither be created nor destroyed. It only transforms, cycling endlessly through patterns of change.
Every death is a rearrangement.
Every collapse a preparation for something new. When a star dies, its ashes seed the birth of new worlds. When matter breaks apart, its energy returns to the cosmic flow, and when you breathe out, the atoms you release will drift and recombine, someday perhaps to form the roots of a tree or the core of a distant planet. The universe doesn't end. It rearranges its story. From the collapse of stars to the beating of hearts, from entropy to evolution, the same law hums beneath everything. Transformation is continuity. Every ending is another kind of beginning. Maybe eternity is not something that stretches on forever. Maybe it's something that renews itself constantly, one heartbeat at a time. There's a quiet humility in realizing that the story of everything includes us, not as observers, but as participants. We are not watching the universe evolve. We are its evolution. Every act of perception, every moment of love, every question asked, adds a line to the unfolding narrative. Perhaps the cosmos needed eyes to see itself. And so it grew galaxies into beings who could look back in wonder. Perhaps that wonder itself, the act of asking, of seeking, is the continuation of creation. The universe expands through curiosity as much as through space. Each time you look up and feel awe, the story begins again. Each time you notice something small and beautiful, the way light bends through water, the way sound hums in silence, you are witnessing the Big Bang in a new form. The spark of understanding is no different from the first spark of creation. Both are light emerging from darkness. Even now, the universe is still expanding, galaxies rushing away faster than we can see. But maybe that outward expansion mirrors an inward one too. Awareness grows, understanding deepens, compassion widens. The cosmos stretches not just across space, but within consciousness. The same impulse that pushes galaxies apart pushes the mind toward wonder. Science traces the external unfolding. Spirit feels the internal one. Between them, we find our place, a moment of awareness in a story without end. We tend to speak of the end of the universe, of entropy and silence, but perhaps there is no final chapter. Perhaps the silence is only a pause before another breath, another cycle, another bloom of creation. The rhythm of existence may be eternal. Expansion, rest, renewal. The beginning never ended. It just keeps changing its name, and maybe that's the comfort hidden in the mystery. The same force that ignited the stars still moves through you. You are not separate from that first light.
You are its continuation. In your heartbeat echoes the rhythm of the early universe.
In your thoughts, the patterns of cosmic logic unfold. You are a momentary arrangement of ancient energy. Stardust organized briefly into awareness.
Long enough to look back and wonder. When you close your eyes at night,
That awareness dissolves into the same silence that preceded time. And in the morning, it returns like creation, renewing itself once more. The beginning isn't something we remember. It's something we live endlessly in every breath. So as we close this journey through theories and possibilities, from quantum tremors to divine silence, perhaps we don't end at all. We simply return to the same question, but with softer eyes. Not where did everything begin, but how does it keep beginning here, now, always. The story of everything is not written in past tense. It's still writing itself, one sunrise at a time, and in that story you are both a sentence and a spark. Fleeting, but essential. The universe began once, yes, but it also begins wherever you choose to notice it. In wonder, in connection, in the quiet realization that you are part of the ongoing act of creation. Thank you for walking this path, for listening, for wondering, for sharing a moment of stillness in the vast unfolding. If this journey stirred something in you, let it keep echoing. The universe doesn't need applause, only attention. But if you'd like to stay close as we continue exploring, you can quietly linger, like a star that chooses to keep shining, by subscribing, by returning, by being part of this ever-expanding circle of curiosity. As the night deepens and the cosmos hums around you, remember, the beginning never ended. It is here, breathing with you, unfolding through you, still becoming itself. Good night.